Now,
Hi everyone, welcome to Dad's Planning Politics. This is the second episode and maybe one of the most exciting episodes we've had yet. Obviously, the first one isn't hard to beat, but the election is happening right now in the US, so we're going to talk a bit about that and a bit more about that and probably a bit more about that. Here's my dad.
hi Freddie, how you doing today?
I'm doing very well. I'm incredibly nervous. The doom and gloom of this election is really taking over me at the moment, but that's okay.
It'll be fine. I'm calling in from Hong Kong today, even though it looks like San Francisco behind me. And Freddie is in Sydney, and it's
Mhm.
the eve of the US election. Very, very exciting. We're both in overload of watching media, different interpretations, and it's going to be very exciting tomorrow. I still think Kamala's going to win. I think
Yeah, you're confident to a ridiculous degree, though. I wish I could be like that. It would make my life a lot
I
easier.
even bet some money on it. So hopefully we win. It'll be a double celebration because the odds against Kamala winning were quite high. And Trump was by far the favorite in the betting markets, which normally would
Yeah.
make you think that by far he's going to win. So it'll be a really interesting case study if Kamala wins because it'll be one of the first times that the betting market hasn't got it right. So I may
Yeah.
be completely wrong, and so Trump could, who knows? I mean,
But
all
I also think on another angle as well, it's fantastic betting when it comes to the US election because that's the very idea of America is based off this idea of bets and gambling and the stock market and everything. So I feel like it's very appropriate whether she wins or loses and you win or lose.
now, Freddie, you were telling me about Bad Bunny. Tell the listeners about the latest there and the whole Puerto Rican thing.
Well, of course, as I'm sure you all would have heard, the other day a certain comedian called Puerto Rico island of floating trash. And since then, tons of Puerto Rican artists and Latino artists have come out and stood with Harris and supported her and thrown themselves behind her through rallies and tweets and everything else you can imagine. So that's been a big, that's probably going to have a big effect on the voting in Pennsylvania.
I think it'll be
Yeah,
huge. And I was also hearing the other day that there's lots of people of Polish background in Pennsylvania, and they're really
really.
concerned about what's going to happen with Ukraine should Trump get in, because of course Poland is right next to Ukraine, and they're
Mhm.
quite worried about the advance of Russia should that happen. So it's really interesting that I think people are starting to project what if Trump became president? What would be the implications for a lot of this? And it's interesting to me that climate hasn't really come up much in the whole election, but it's so stark, the difference in their policies. So, Freddie, why do you think that is?
Why do I think climate? I mean, I just think at the moment there's much higher stakes. I mean, not that climate isn't important, not that it's not like one of the biggest things that should be on everyone's minds. And, it should, in an ideal world, be one of the key policy differences between the two parties. But since human rights are on the table, like very idea of America and its democracy is on the table, I think that that's what you're choosing between. Like you're choosing between a candidate that honors the democratic system, and you're choosing between one who wants to take down all the pre-existing legislation and start all from scratch and build his own America of what he believes America should be, not what it is. So climate has become a thing which is not relevant anymore. And I mean, people like a game, people like news, they like the chaos of something, and the chaos of climate change and the chaos of all the protests that happened a few years back and is still happening, people have forgotten about because there's so much else going on in the world. So, people stick with the present.
Do you think climate and threats to democracy are, though, a thing that the intellectuals talk about and politically astute people talk about, but the average person in the street doesn't worry about it so much because they're more worried about, are they going to keep their job next week? Do they have enough food on the table for their families? And so, just like you were saying, in terms of climate, it's not the biggest issue at the moment. What do you think about more working class people and how they think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a privilege to be able to discuss those things at least. I mean, we're already seeing massive effects of climate change right now as it is, but most of those effects just because of geo um, what's the term for that? But just geography, I suppose. The developing countries are the ones who are experiencing the brunt of that. And although there are cases with northeastern Spain and obviously with the storms that just went through Florida, like that's a small section of the developed world, whereas the developing world is experiencing most of that. And, you know, politics is always about what's happening right now. It's never about looking forward to the future and planning for that. So I
No,
think
that's
that's
true.
the
But there
main.
is a lot of talk that Kamala could have done a better job to number one, defend the record of the Biden administration. And overall, they did a great job on the economy. The American economy is having a soft landing. Inflation has been through the roof like it has been everywhere around the world, but they didn't do a great job of that. And she didn't do a great job of explaining the future economic prosperity that she's going to bring. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think it's also important for candidates to choose what they're going to focus on. And it seems like Trump, because he holds the economy up as such a high priority for him and for his potential government, that he's claimed it for himself. So she has decided to target other areas. I also think one of the main issues with her for quite a few voters are the fact that she's been in the Biden administration this whole time. So people connect her with that. People believe that she has the same policies. So if the Biden administration has been doing well, then maybe people assume they're going to continue along that line and people aren't as concerned about it. What they are concerned about is what the administration has been doing wrong. And I mean, to a lot of people, that what they've been doing wrong with Israel is just like unforgivable. So I think that that's at the forefront of people's minds
But
rather than the economy.
that's an interesting point because those people who are unhappy with the Democrats around that, do they think that the Trump administration would be any better?
I think that Trump gives this feeling of power and control, and obviously this rhetoric he keeps putting out into the world is that he's going to stop all war and America's going to be safe and everyone's going to be safe and world peace. He doesn't say how that's going to happen, but he says it's going to happen. So there's probably a few people who believe that he will put an end to what's happening in Palestine. But I also think that people aren't necessarily going to vote for Trump, but they don't want to vote for Kamala. And that doesn't make any sense politically, because obviously there's always going to be the other candidate. And when you're not voting for someone, you are inadvertently voting for the other candidate. So, yeah, I think that that's a dangerous position to be playing at this point in the election. But, you know, people have the right to boycott a candidate if they believe that they're not doing the right thing, I suppose.
And Freddie, what do you think of the whole thing that, I'm sure American voters are inherently conservative like Australian ones are as well. And this will be the first female president.
Well, the white majority.
Okay.
The white majority who do make up a vast amount of voters in America just because of
this will be the first female president. It's a big deal, right? And so there will be a lot of people who are super enthusiastic about that and some people who are uncertain about that. What do you think about that whole thing? Do you think that's a big issue in this election?
Well, I don't know about you, but I have been reading quite a bit about just the history of American elections as they are and the fact that it's difficult to determine from the polls what's going to happen. That's all up in the air. Everyone's confused. No one knows who to believe. But generally, in American elections, you can look back at the past to determine what's going to happen. And realistically, there has never been a female president and there's only been one black president. So the odds of endorsing and then voting in a candidate who is both of these minorities are remarkable. Like, I think it would take a miracle for that to happen, because people like what they're safe with. They like safety. They don't like change.
I don't know. I'm more confident than you. I don't think it's going to take a miracle. I think you're right. It's a huge change, but I think the world has changed a lot. And I think the methods they've used in their campaign are radically new, with their memes and really appealing to younger people on their turf as opposed to the traditional means of marketing. So let's see. It'll be really interesting. What do you think? Do you think Kevin Rudd will survive? Let's say Trump won. Does Kevin Rudd survive as our ambassador to the US, given what he said about Trump historically?
I don't even want to get into that. I mean, the ideas of if Trump is going to win, there's far too many other things on my mind about if Trump wins and what will happen to the state of the world. I don't think I'll be thinking about whether Kevin Rudd is still going to be the ambassador or not. But I mean, I wasn't actually aware that the sitting president of nation had that much say in what ambassador was sent to their
They
country.
don't, but they don't traditionally. But if he says I can't work with him, I mean, it's a super important relationship for Australia, whoever is the president, right? So it's just an interesting political thing for Albo to decide, because Joe Hockey, for example, was good mates with Trump. They used to play golf together and all that sort of thing. And that sort of thing is super important for Australia, because let's say Trump wins and he puts tariffs on the rest of the world. Last time we got a free pass. We didn't get those tariffs on us. That could be incredibly damaging to the Australian economy. So there'll be all sorts of work to ensure that Australia gets an exception.
I mean, I think that's going to be different regardless. I mean, Trump has made so much about the fact he wants America to increase protection to unprecedented levels, right? To have an entirely independent economy that doesn't need any other trade from any other ally or relationship, such as Australia, as they've had in the past. So yeah, I'm not sure, but I think.
Sorry.
No, sorry, you go.
No, I'm just amazed that economic discussion has not happened more. My contention is that Kamala is not all that comfortable. That is not her strong point, talking about economics as such. She's got a lot of other incredible strong points. But, for me, the fact that they haven't talked about the impacts of those tariffs on the average American, and they've mapped it out that it's going to cost every American this much money, is amazing to me, because I think that would have happened in Australia.
Yeah, okay. I see what you mean, but I think regardless of how much she talked about it or how confident she seemed on the matter, people are still going to doubt her capability. They're going to see her as a woman of Southeast Asian descent and a Black woman, and they're going to not think that she has the capacity like Trump has to manage the economy and to manage tariffs, and they're going to trust on what he says. I mean, we're talking about that voter, right? The voter who there's a lot more of at the moment. Everyone's really worried about cost of living, and that voter is incredibly important to this election. That voter who sits around just wondering if they're able to buy food for the next week and continue living on it, going about their daily lives. Like, I think that tariffs in the future are out of their mind's eye.
Mm-hmm. It's a really interesting point. And the other thing I thought, just from a human point of view, Trump almost seemed nostalgic in the last few days of this. Like, he kept saying this will be the last time this ever happens, because of course, if he does,
nostalgia.
No, because if he gets in, he can't run again. This will be the last term. Whereas if Kamala gets in, of course, she can run again. It's quite a different scenario. And so I think he is, my sense is, from a human point of view, he's thinking, oh, what if I don't win? And he's probably scared, right? Because he's up for prosecution in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, look, I've heard a lot of that on the internet as well, that he's not really running for president, he's just running away from jail. That's what I keep hearing. He's running away from the courts and the judges who want to lock him up. Yeah, it's definitely a big thing. I mean, I think that this man has a lot on his mind. I don't think this is an ordinary election. This is not a normal Republican candidate and a normal Democratic candidate. This is Donald Trump. No one really knows what he's thinking. No one really knows what he's planning to do. The only thing you can do is guess at it and read about Project 2025 and see what they're planning to do. And I mean, that's their plan, is to completely get rid of the election cycle itself. Like, their plan is to put Donald Trump in the presidency and keep him there. Maybe that's why he seems nostalgic. Maybe that's why he seems, oh God, this is the last time this is going to happen, because in his mind, he believes it's the last time Americans are going to have to vote again, because he believes that he can keep the office as long as he wants to.
I don't know whether he truly believes that, but you could be right. You could be right.
I don't think it's so insane.
No, it's not.
I think that given what
plausible.
happened in America, like 4 years ago, we wouldn't say that Trump would have gotten to the level he is right now today. I mean, 20 years ago, no one would have said that he'd ever be president, right?
Well, it's true. It's very true. What do you think about? It's really interesting that Trump can say certain things, but other people, his minions, can't. The example is the comedian talking about the island of garbage, and other people don't give other people a pass that they give Trump a pass on. What do you think about that concept, that he has this sort of Teflon scenario, and people find him funny, right? Whereas other people in his cohort who say things, people don't accept it.
Yeah, I'm really not sure about that, to be honest. I suppose that because Trump is such a character, they see him as this strong individual who's going to lead the country, and then they see his minions as the ones who might keep him in check and actually keep the country running as it should. So when they say concerning things like that, the reality of the situation sets in. Whereas when he says it, oh, it's just Trump again. It's just Trump making another silly remark. He's never going to follow through. Like, he's not going to do that. He's strong, but he's not that bad of a guy. He's just Trump. Like, to me, that seems what people are thinking about him. I don't know about you.
Look, I'm fascinated by the whole thing. I think people do give Trump incredible leniency. They have such low expectations. Nothing kind of can shock them about Trump, whereas other people are held to quite high standards on that whole regard, right? And someone was saying it's okay for it's worse that Biden, talked about, Trump supporters being rubbish, whether he meant it or not, it's kind of stupid. And it just said to me, oh, thank goodness he's not the candidate, right? Because clearly he wasn't up for the job. And we'd be in a very different situation now, I think, if Biden was still the candidate.
Oh, yeah, no way would he win. There would be no chance in hell, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It'd be fascinating to see a hypothetical situation where Trump did everything badly, where he did every single terrible thing he could possibly do, and see if America still punished him for that. Mm-hmm. Because it seems like there is nothing he can do, that there's no bar he can cross. Mm-hmm. They're almost similar to how there's no bar that Israel seems to cross. There's no line they seem to cross before the Biden administration starts peeling back some of the arms and the funding that they've been sending them.
Well, the part of this concept of this podcast we're doing, Freddie, is to disagree agreeably, right? And that's what I think's been lost in certainly the US and to a degree in Australia as well. People get so polarized. And so now with this election coming up, depending on who wins, are you worried that there's going to be violence in the US, right? If many of these Trump supporters or Harris supporters who just live in their own universe and believe everything they hear on that thing, they're going to be shocked, right, if their candidate doesn't win. And so it worries the hell out of me that there's going to be violence.
I mean, it's interesting you say that because I was at my grandma's earlier and, I was sitting, she has Sky News on 24/7 and I glance over every now and again to see what awful thing that they're spewing out of their mouths. And I see that in the bottom of the screen, it says, oh, the election is going to be disputed no matter what happens. I think disputed, it's going to be a disputed election. What does that mean? Will this election be disputed? That's saying that there is no trust in the electoral commission
Mm-hmm.
or electoral
They don't have
process.
a
Yeah,
commission there. They don't have an independent.
you don't have a commission.
No, that we are so lucky in Australia for several reasons. Compulsory voting, we have a completely independent electoral commission. It's all run by the states and the federal government in the US, which is not separate to the governors and everyone else. Whereas we
This
have
is
a
the thing.
completely
I like
separate
to
body.
think I know. Yeah, I like to think I know a lot about America, but some of the systems are just so inane that it's hard to even comprehend how it works.
Yes.
I kind of called them up on that already. But yeah, I found that quite shocking. Even Sky News in Australia, which you wouldn't think to be so obsessed with the US election, but it is. And the same type of brainwashing and polarization that's happening in the US media is happening here as well. I just think the media is such an important tool in politics, but also a weapon.
Rupert Murdoch would agree with you, and Lachlan.
Yeah, he would definitely agree. I don't think he'd agree with me on much else, though. So, leave that for another episode.
So, your prediction for the election?
I think that she'll win, but I think that I will be biting my nails until that happens. I am hopeful, not as hopeful as you. I think it's going to be incredibly close and we'll only know at the last second what happens. I think I was also encouraged by the fact that as the Sky News is running in the background, I saw at the bottom another little message that said Kamala is leading in the polls. And I think that if Sky News is confident enough to say that Kamala Harris is leading in the polls, then she must be leading by a fair amount. And they must have done enough research to admit something like that. I don't know. I have a bit more faith.
Are you sure they were just not saying the popular vote? Because it's pretty clear she'll win the popular vote. The Democrats will win the House. The Republicans will win the Senate, which is a problem, right, for Kamala if she should win, because it's hard to get legislation through if the Republicans control the Senate. But that's the way the American system works. So I think Kamala will win. I think she'll get 270 electoral college votes, not much more. I think it'll be very close because it's astounding that all these states in America are already defined whether they're Republican or Democrat. There's only 7 in play. Okay, and so it's just astounding how locked in these votes are in America because, for Australian viewers, in America, you have to register as a Republican voter or a Democrat voter, okay, up front.
Yeah.
Or an independent voter, whereas that whole thing doesn't exist in Australia. Of course, there's members of the Liberal Party and the Labor Party, but you don't have to register as a Liberal voter, unless you just happen to be a member of that party. And those members of those parties are just such a tiny fraction of the population. It's quite a different system.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, it's all governed to just put people into 2 boxes, whether they like it or not. You have to pick a side. You're not allowed to be neutral on the matter. Yeah, it's quite a dangerous position. And it scares me as well how whole halves of the United States, whole massive populations and states have already so decided on such a vote. Like, imagine living somewhere like that. You would feel so discriminated against if you're a member of a minority or the LGBTQI population, that you would just move to those more progressive states. So surely these states will only become more and more polarized over time. You will move somewhere based on your political views. And I don't think that's reaching to say that.
Yeah.
Don't you agree?
I think you're exactly right. I think it's an interesting thing. Do you think your population will get out and vote? That's the big issue in the US, that young people traditionally have voted less than older people. Do you think that will change in this election?
Well, obviously, people get more interested in politics when there's a bit more drama to it, and you can't say that there isn't drama to this election. So I think that, yeah, definitely, especially with everything that's taken over social media and the support that's been on there, I don't think that'll be a problem, the youth vote. I also think it's important to remember it has been 4 years since Biden was voted in, and it's been 8 years since Trump was voted in, right? A lot of young people have aged into the vote, aged into the voting population since then. Like, think about that youth power, and a greater percentage of youth are voters for the Democrats. So, I mean, that's really optimistic as well, I would say.
Fantastic. So I know you're going to be watching tomorrow, and I am here. It'll be very interesting to see. And so next time we're podcasting to you guys, we will know the results. And in future episodes, we're also going to get into lots more topics, lots more Australian-related topics and other topics around the world. We've been sort of obsessed with the election at the moment. So we look forward to that, and we hope you're enjoying the podcast. Any final words from you, Freddie?
Not really, but thanks for listening. We love you all, and we're going to continue trying our best and really giving it a go. So, yeah, I guess let's just cross our fingers and hope for the best for tomorrow. I really think hopefully she's got it in the bag.
Thanks, Freddie, and you have a lovely evening, and bye, everyone. See you next time.
You too, Dada. Bye.